Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think from at the committee's last meeting, I think that they were suggesting that Brent Wallace consider potentially putting something together for the next budget to advance it. So right now, it would be just kind of a preliminary looking at and identifying the potential cost of that. So I think Brent is undertaking some of that work on his own.
Thank you for that. Now, Mr. Mayor, I believe you have a motion on the dig once policy,
Yes.
which is on page 109. Would this be the time to?
I'm going to receive these minutes first, and then I'm going to bring the item D on page 109 motion forward then.
Okay, thank
That'd
you.
be okay? Also, it's a separate motion. Thank you. Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. My question is somewhat related to what Councillor Columbus asked, and I'm a little confused why I did see some information back a year or so ago from, maybe it was longer than that, from Norfolk Power on their location of their fiber to Dover and different places. But do we, I guess my first question is, do we still have a utilities coordinating committee through you to maybe Lee or Chris? Lee?
Lee?
Through the mayor to council, we do still have a utilities committee, but it's more to coordinate our capital projects and our capital forecasting and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well,
Like to make sure that we don't reconstruct a road and then have Union Gas come in the following year and rip up the whole road to put in new gas main.
yeah, I understand that, but it used to be all utilities had to apply to the road authority for a location within the road allowance. Does that not apply still? Or do they just get free willy to go in there and do whatever they want? How does it work now?
Through the mayor to council, we have municipal consents, which is we enter into agreements with service providers to be located in certain places in our right-of-way. So yes, we do have agreements in place with the utilities to be able to do that.
So do you not keep those records? Like if they're applying for fiber optics within your road allowance, you don't keep records of that?
We'll have maps for where they have requested it, but we don't know where it actually is, because once we've given them the approval to be located, they're not obligated to tell us whether or not they've actually installed anything or proceeded through that manner.
Well, I thought that was the idea of the municipal consent forms when they...
It's to give, the municipal consent gives them permission to be located in a certain spot. It doesn't mean that they have to do the installation today. Like lots of times, I believe it was Execulink in the Delhi area, maybe I have the wrong company, but one of them basically had applied for a huge section of the Delhi area. And it was over a series of many years before they had actually completed all of that. So we don't get up to dates as to exactly what they're doing, but we have locations for where they've been approved to be located.
Do you still use the, I believe it's the Utilities on Highways Act for, you know, how it used to be when you go in to rebuild a road, you have hydro, for example. If you have to relocate it, you pay for labor and labor-saving devices only, no material or whatever. Does that still apply to when you rebuild a road?
Through the mayor to council, what applies is whatever we have agreed to with the utilities. That formed the basis of the agreements that we have in place with the utilities for the municipal consents.
Thank you.
Anything further? You heard the motion to receive as information. Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. From these minutes, it's been moved by Councillor Height, seconded by Councillor Oliver, that council support the recommendation of the Telecommunications Advisory Committee and direct staff to investigate a dig once policy that includes but is not limited to right-of-ways and the next generation handbook, and that the draft report be brought to the Telecommunications Advisory Committee for review and comment prior to being presented to council in committee. Any discussion on this motion from Height and Oliver? Yes, Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm wondering if we could ask Public Works for their opinion on drafting such a policy, or if they've had time to research this out.
Lee, any comment on this proposed resolution, please?
Through the mayor to council, we have not had a chance to do enough research on it to be able to provide a comment at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? I'll call the question then. Those in favor of the resolution? That's carried, thank you. Okay, I'm on page 111. This is the Norfolk Heritage Committee. Wells has moved, Columbus has seconded that the minutes of the Norfolk Heritage Committee meeting of April the 30th, 2018 be received as information. Any questions on these minutes? Councillor Wells and then Columbus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask a question on page 113 under C, bylaw enforcement. It's my understanding if a house is designated, then the owners must get permission to change things. Is that the idea? And are they owners, when they designate a house, made aware of this so that they know they just can't go and change things?
Mr. Baird, please.
Through the mayor, good question, Councillor Wells. That is correct. By having a heritage designated property, there are certain elements, it's definitely not the whole home, but there are elements that have been identified as heritage of significance, and those homeowners have to have due regard for that when they do their repairs and or restoration. In this particular case, we had a new owner that was not aware of those responsibilities under the Heritage Act, and so we paid them a visit, helped them out, tried to make sure what they were doing would not conflict with their intended works. So generally, it would be up to a purchaser's lawyer to identify any of the restrictions or obligations that they would have as an owner of a heritage home. And certainly the plaque that's affixed to the home should be a dead giveaway that there needs to be some regard. I know our Heritage and Culture Director, and through the committee, they do have a full registry. I believe the figure's somewhere in the 130 range, and we have regular communications with them and are there as a resource to answer any questions. But at times, it has in the past, I can recall in the last 10 years, there was an enforcement follow-up that was required, and we generally get good support from those owners.
Thank you. Councillor Columbus, Black, and then Oliver.
Mr. Mayor, my question's with respect to that bylaw enforcement issue as well, and you can see the work has been stopped pending resolution. And this is a case where the siding, the elevation of the siding on the house is wood siding, and the new owner was covering it with aspenite before he puts vinyl siding on it. Well, he's going to put wood siding back on it, I understand. But the concern I have here is Melissa is concerned that we need to have an overarching building standards bylaw specific for heritage. And you mentioned 130 properties. Does that mean that, would they be exempt, those 130 properties, or would you make sure that this standards bylaw comes in to cover those 130 properties that are already designated?
Sure. Through the mayor, through this exercise, we became aware that we don't specifically have a bylaw that we could force or enforce. This work is purely done by cooperation. So Melissa is working with our county solicitor to see what type of bylaw can be implemented. But everything we've done to date has always been through, just discussion and trying to be helpful. There's lots of, we certainly don't want to stand in the way of people protecting and repairing, restoring their heritage property, but there may be methods to protect that. And it may not, in fact, have been the siding. It could be a window, perhaps, that was designated. And just having that discussion, everybody's satisfied. But it came to light that we do need to have some sort of improved bylaw that would actually give us the authority if someone was, for example, demolishing a heritage property. So there's a process to be followed.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
I was going to respond to Councillor Wells' question and how people, when properties are transferred from one individual to the next, first of all, with the real estate board, I'm not sure if they still do this, but there is a property information form Some of you may be aware of it. And there's a whole list of things on there, boxes, questions that could be ticked off. One of the questions is this property a heritage designated property? So there's the first piece of information that is relayed to a new property owner, and it's the heritage designations, I believe, are registered on title. So then their lawyer would be aware of that. And thirdly, there is a registry here at the municipality that if there was a search done here, the heritage designation would pop up. So there's 3 different ways that that comes up. The Heritage Committee, I know, are trying to communicate more with properties that are designated, so there's a more heightened awareness of the designation and exactly what it means.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Oliver.
Mr. Mayor, my question, Councillor Black just answered it, and it was, are these heritage designations registered on title? And I think he said they are. So.
Any other questions? You heard the resolution to receive as information. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to page 115, moved by Columbus, seconded by Wells, that the minutes of the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of May 28, 2018 be received as information. Discussion. Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'd like to draw your attention to the top of page 116. You can see that a member of the Telecommunications Advisory Committee came to the TDAB committee to speak about communications and internet and all that fun stuff. Jerry did an excellent job, and when he asked the committee if he thought high-speed internet was still needed in Norfolk County, I thought they were going to jump out of their chair. So that's an absolute, I believe, is how I would phrase that. And you can see the motion by Karen Matthews that we need to place a high priority on the installation of dependable high-speed internet. Now, throughout the county, we've done a great deal in this term by moving that fiber project from Delhi down to Port Rowan and St. Williams. And I feel that because of our contribution at council, that allowed the private company to run down through Walsh, and they still have more plans to expand. In looking at our capital budget, I see that we've set aside some more funding for some fiber initiatives, and I believe, did you receive an email from me, Mr. Cribbs, on that? You did, and I expect we'll have some type of follow-up that we'll be able to bring council shortly to at least give them an update on where we stand with possibly another further expansion. So we're definitely I know Swift is slow, but we're moving fast, so we're working forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Councillor Wells.
Very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on page 118, under 6.3.2, labor market, I was quite surprised when I read this. Mr. Poss spoke about the tight labor market currently, how many employers, large and small, are experiencing difficulty finding suitable candidates for job opportunities. I didn't realize that we had 100% employment in Norfolk County.
Well, I have heard the same comment made. I was about 2 weeks ago in my office speaking to the CEO of a very large manufacturing firm in our county, saying that one of the limitations that they are reaching now with any future expansion is the fact they feel that it's getting harder and harder to attract the type of labor that they have been able to. In other words, the supply is starting to dwindle of people interested in working in their organization. I was quite surprised to hear that, but I think you're expressing the same sort of comments. So, Councillor Height?
If I could add to that, Mayor Luke, I have that one highlighted as well, and I know from the business owners in my area and other ones across the county that I've spoken with, it is hard to find help. And one of the problems, though, is that people would move to Norfolk County, but rental places are hard to find.
Yes.
Like Literally, if you put up an ad for a rental property, you probably got 30, 40 applications right away. And I know I had a young couple move to my ward for a position at another company, and they couldn't find anything good. And they ended up leaving their job, and they went back to Brantford because there just was nothing here, you know. So that's something that we need to look at, is some housing.
Yes. Anything further? Resolution to receive as information. Those in favor? That too is carried. Thank you. I believe that is it for our reports of committees. It is. Let's go to section 9 of our agenda on page 121. Request here from Julianne Kachaki, and it goes like this. It has been moved by Councillor Height and seconded by Councillor Oliver that the request of Julianne Kachaki of the South Coast Jazz for an LCBO request for designation as event of municipal significance be approved, subject to receipt of all required approvals. Discussion on this resolution. Hearing none, those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Next, on page 123, yes, go ahead, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know you because you had your glasses on, and I do apologize for that. It finally hit me when you took your glasses off. You look very well, thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Mayor, just while we were reviewing that request and going to pass our motion, I just wonder if we could have allowed Julianne to make a comment if she wanted. I know we've given her what she came for, but
I could do a show of hands if that is your request.
Well, I'm suggesting that would be a good thing, yes.
I'm sure it is. I can't allow it without a show of hands. Is there, could I have a show of hands, those in favor of allowing Julianne a comment? Yes.
We already approved it. What could she add to it? I mean, I would understand if we allowed her to speak before we passed the motion, but the motion has been passed. That was her request. What could she add to it? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands for those that will allow her to speak? Just two? Okay, so I guess you can't speak today. I am just following the wishes of council, so I put it on the floor. Thank you. I will now move on to page 123. It's been moved by Councillor Brunton, seconded by Councillor Height, that the request of Dave Kent, Simcoe Street Soiree for a LCBO special occasion permit notice to the municipality be approved, subject to receipt of all required approvals. Discussion on this. Those in favor? Carried. Next, on page 125, this is Branch 79, the Legion in Simcoe, President John Charlot. It's been moved by Columbus, seconded by Wells, at the request of John Charlot, President of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 79, Simcoe, for a license extension for the annual steak barbecue be approved, subject to receipt of all required approvals. This is a civic holiday weekend request. Councillor Height, to the resolution, please.
Mayor Luke, I'm looking partway through the letter, about halfway down. It says, as in the past, we are requesting 16 picnic tables, 6 garbage receptacles with tabletop inserts and fencing for 200 linear feet. Are they requesting that from county?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, sometimes what occurs when people submit this is they're required to submit to a number of departments, so they'd also submit to CSD at the same time. It would still be the regular process for doing that. Council isn't approving any picnic tables or anything like that. They would still have to pay and make arrangements with CSD for that.
So there are rental fees for that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Columbus?
Yes, with respect to this event, what kind of licenses or when an organization like this is having an event, do they have to have a special business license? I talked to someone the other day, as you did, Mr. Mayor, where they had to have an industrial barbecue. And you're aware of that, and I think staff's looking into it. Are all these organizations familiar with the requirements? Because what happens, it comes up to the last day and they've got their event within 2 days and they've got tickets sold, 300-400 tickets sold, and all of a sudden they need all these things that in order to have the event. So I just wonder what all licensing requirements will they need for this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just looking at it, with the Branch 79, the Royal Canadian Legion, they would already have a kitchen license, so there wouldn't be anything additional, I don't think, except for the health unit would obviously and do the regular inspections of any Legion, but they wouldn't need anything in addition to what they normally already possess. It is very individual on a case-by-case basis, and normally it's not the organization that needs business licensing. Usually it's the outside service provider. So if they're bringing in somebody to run a food truck or something like that, that person needs to be licensed.
So just to follow, so it's a steak barbecue, so, and that would, I take it, be it's cooking outside, it's not in the kitchen, so they will not require some kind of an extra license for this barbecue?
I think if I may, Councillor Columbus, the way I read this, it is a catering service that's doing the cooking
Right.
on the Legion property, and as the clerk has said, they would need the proper licensing to come on, I think, the situation that you're referring to, and I was aware of, and I think it was the fact that the cooking was being done on county property, and that's a different, that's a group cooking on county facility. It's not like it's a licensed catering truck?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, so all catering trucks would be, they'd have a pre-existing annual license in effect. It's one of the things that we get involved with sometimes is there's a significant reduction in the cost and the fee charged, a $220 reduction for charitable groups to have mobile food. So sometimes when charitable groups come forward, we try to enableize them to get a business license rather than have the caterer get it, because it's a significant cost savings for them if they do it that way. That's one of the reasons, the only reason why we would have a charitable group that actually had a business license. In most cases, they bring in an outside service provider.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Those in favor of approval? Carried, thank you. On to page 127, moved by Councillor Oliver, seconded by Councillor Height, that the request of Rupert Banner, owner of Royal Rio Delhi Motor Inn, for license extension for the outdoor dance at the Royal Rio Delhi Motor Inn be approved, subject to receipt of all required approvals. Discussion on this. Those in favor? It's carried. Page 129, it's been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Wells, that the correspondence of Jesselyn Horton regarding safety concerns Waterford Public School be received as information. Discussion on this. Councillor Sonnenberg.
Yes, question to Public Works. Am I correct in that this is still not a school zone road or street? That's under discussion here.
Through the mayor to council, council will recall we actually went and reduced all of the speed limits to 40 in the vicinity. This particular school came back and we actually didn't know about a certain area of the road that they used, and we actually did adjust all of that. So it is, The biggest concern, I would say, that I'm reading through this is that it is actually, the sidewalk actually abuts the traveled section of the road without a curb in between it. And so it's easy to sort of to move in between. As council's aware, we're working on the roads needs study this year, and we are no longer doing that install. We no longer would promote the installation of the sidewalk immediately abutting the traveled portion of the road without actually putting in an asphalt curb. So we will be reviewing this, and when the road is scheduled to be upgraded, obviously we would be adjusting the sidewalk at that time, unless council's wishing us to do something else. The other thing is perhaps we could refer this to the Police Services Board to see if they could do some enhanced enforcement in the area.
But there is a movement in Waterford to have this designated a school zone street, and for some reason it's not. It borders on the back of the school. People park their cars there, kids cross the street going to and from the cars, and to me, it's common sense that this would be a school zone street, along with Church Street that goes in front of the school.
Through the mayor to council, we can certainly look at that. It's possible. The school implemented using that as an access point, so it's perhaps there was a timing issue where it hadn't, where the school zone designation had been put in place prior to the school actually putting a hole in the fence and using it. So we'll look into it, and if it's an administrative matter, we'll just take care of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be wise for staff to do a report on this area. I'm quite familiar with that Duncan Road area. Councillor Sonnenberg has mentioned. Sorry, Harold. My memory's going. Anyway.
I haven't forgotten your name. He's one of the rookies here.
Anyways, and especially in the winter, and I have noticed it, and I travel that road a little bit in the winter, and it's with the snowbanks and that. I don't know. I'm sure Lee is well aware of the area, but I'm wondering if some form of report to and that crossing Thompson Road for those kids is certainly a problem. I don't know if we don't have any traffic guard there, do we, at all? And there's a lot.
Sorry, we don't have.
We don't have a traffic guard there.
I believe there's a crossing guard on the corner. There was back when I was there to cross Thompson Road.
There is? Okay.
Yes, there is.
Okay, because I think that's very important in that
yes,
area.
Yes, it is.
But,
good point.
And there's a lot more people in the Inn subdivision that have come along in the last few years. So
yes.
I think, I'm just wondering if a report might be in order to look at the future of the sidewalk and the boulevard in that area. And I'd make that recommendation. If it's better to look ahead and plan it and see where we're going. And I appreciate the needs studies coming out, but I think it might be something to look at now versus later on when we might have a problem.
Okay, I'll get to you in a moment. A comment,
Sure.
Ms. Robinson?
Through the mayor to council, I'm not sure that a staff report would be necessary. We will definitely look at the school zone issues to see if what has transpired. Perhaps it was just something that was omitted. If that's the case, that will come back just through a bylaw, and it won't require a report. That's something that we can just put on the agenda that way. In regards to snow clearing on the sidewalk, we can see what we can do about that. That's really an operational matter. It doesn't really need a council report to address that. There is a crossing guard at Thompson and Duncombe, so that matter has sort of been addressed. I would, in regards to what we can do on a going forward basis, there are some utilities and some other things out there that would make it difficult to, without doing a bunch of road reconstruction work, just move the sidewalk and put in a curb. So that it's not something that we could, I'm going to say, easily implement as a quick solution. It's something we can certainly bring back after the time that the roads need study is done, because if the road is showing as something that needs to be reconstructed in the very near future, that was something we can certainly discuss at budget this fall for a capital budget going forward. So I'm not sure that there's anything that a staff report could bring back to council that would be advantageous at this time. We can certainly make the other changes from simply an administration point of view without needing to bring a report back.
Just a comment, if I may, I know there was a motion to receive as information. I did go out after I got Ms. Horton's request here about safety, and you're familiar with the area certainly. And the sidewalk does not have a boulevard. It certainly has a good lip on it for the entire section from Thompson northward. And there, you know, and so when I see that sidewalk as I'm driving around the county, I'm looking for other sidewalks that we have put in the same situation. The one that jumped to mind right away was Cedar Street in Simcoe. That sidewalk on the south side, there's no boulevard. It is right on the pavement, and it's it's a two-lane, then into four. So, and it's fairly heavily trafficked, and a few kids use that to come to school at Elgin. Certainly, since I left in 2013, Waterford Public, a fence has been erected along Duncombe on the south side of the rear part of the school property. It doesn't run all the way north to East Church. So I certainly understand this parent's concern. And I think it's something we can consider in our fall budget when we look at that this fall in the capital budget. In the meantime, I think, many children walk to school without sidewalks. And so they have to really pay attention, and they have to be taught to walk towards traffic and when there's no sidewalk, and keep your eyes open and not be pushing people around. It's serious business. So anyhow, that's just my comments here. Yeah, Lee, you're going to look just at the whole situation. Yeah, with the corner lot, I think somebody's brought up a good point here that perhaps that road, Duncan Road to the east, is not in the safety zone. It should be. School property to the road. Anyhow, Columbus and Wells' motion is to receive as information. I'm going to deal with that motion first. Those in favor? So we received as information. Councillor Brunton, you had suggested the possibility of a staff report. Lee's responded. Do you wish to pursue it because you are in order?
No.
Okay, well, we'll leave that at this time. Thank you very much. Page 131, some correspondence from Jesse Morris of Morris Trucking and Excavating, moved by Councillor Sonnenberg, seconded by Councillor Brunton, that the correspondence of Jesse Morris respecting permission to hang advertising signs on the fence be received as information. Any discussion on this? This is an item I brought forward. There's a bit of a history here. I don't really want to get into it. Mr. Clerk, what, receiving his information as the motion if is carried, what would the response or direction to Mr. Morris be if he wants to find out if he can put a few signs along his chain link fence across from Toyo Tetsu on the corner of the 14th and Park Road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if he's approached yet building and bylaws. I'll ask Mr. Baird possibly to comment.
Mr. Baird, any suggestions, direction to give to Mr.?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. I've spoken with Mr. Morris, and we're very much aware of what he's planning to do. He's got some good reasoning for it. The current sign bylaw does have some restrictions in terms of the sign that he wants to put up are what we call billboard in nature, so they're not advertising products and sales or services from that location. It would be advertising other businesses. So that is something to deal with, as well as the size of the signs in terms of their multiplicity along the property line and the setback. Generally, they go on buildings, not on fences. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Morris has every opportunity to go to the bylaw appeals committee to get the committee's endorsement if they're satisfied with what he's proposing. That would be my recommendation, is that be received as information and that he be directed to apply through the bylaw appeals committee for consideration.
Bylaw appeals committee, and in other words, get a hold of the clerk to make a presentation there.
Absolutely.
I got it. Thank you. Councillor Height?
Mayor Luke, isn't this very similar to that property in the west end or east end of Delhi? At the corner of Brant Road, and right there's a fence with signs hanging off of it?
Brant Road 4 and Church Street in Delhi?
Yeah, right there?
Signs on that fence?
That's
Right.
correct.
Did they have to go through all that trouble?
Through the mayor, a lot of those signs were affixed before the passage of the current sign bylaw, so they're deemed to be legal non-conforming.
Oh,
But
don't
they
say
would
that
have,
word to me.
they would have had an opportunity to also go through in that manner.
Oh, I see, okay. So, because we charge a fee for signs on properties, do we not? Or the MPAC does, don't they assess something? Isn't there something like that?
I believe through the mayor, signs like that, big billboard in nature, there's a considerable advantage financially to hosting one. So whether or not they're assessed, I'm not 100% certain, but I suspect they may well.
Okay, so would this be assessed like that, do you know?
I don't believe so.
No?
But I would still recommend that it go through the appeals committee to make it endorsed by the committee and essentially permitted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Councillor Sonnenberg?
Yes, I was talking to Mr. Morris about this, and he informs me that he's had complaints about dust coming off of his property, and he thinks that signage on the fence could possibly contain some of the dust from going out onto the street. So that's another thing to consider when it comes to the appeals committee.
Anything further? Those in favor? Information carried. Thank you. Thank you. Page 133. This is the development, the Wellings development on the former W.F. Hewitt Public School property on the northeast corner of Waterford. It's been moved by Councillor Brunton, seconded by Councillor Height, that the correspondence of Kevin Pigeon, President and Chief Operating Officer of Nautical Lands Group, be received as information. If you read this letter, you're aware of what his request is. Councillor Sonnenberg?
Yes, when I was first made aware of this situation, I thought it was a no-brainer. I mean, let's go through county property to get to a construction site and impact the fewest number of people possible. And rather than going right through the center of the subdivision to get to construction and behind the subdivision. But lo and behold, we've had all kinds of objectors to this. Residents, Deer Park Committee, doctor's office, and the list goes on. And I'm really quite surprised at the objections that have been brought forward. And I just wonder where we are with this at the present time.
You're looking at Lee Robinson?
Yes.
I thought you were gazing in that direction. Lee, any comments to make on this request?
Through the mayor to council, at this point, it's really a decision for council to make. As Councillor Sonnenberg has indicated, there are a considerable number of complaints from the residents in the area. From a staff perspective, we don't particularly have any objections to what's being proposed, but we do understand that the majority of people that we have heard from in the area are objecting to that. That is what has prompted the letter to council, because ultimately at this point, council really needs to decide which way they would prefer staff to provide direction to the developer.
Councillor Sonnenberg, on that, before I go to Councillor Black, it's my understanding there were two residents and the two doctors in the corner office, I'll call it. Are you aware that other people are, they're going to get the traffic on the county street in front of their front lawn, or some of them are going to get it less than number in the back on the other side of the fence. Do you know how many?
No, I'm not aware of how many people have objected. I just know there are objectors.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Black, please.
Sort of my point, Mayor Luke, is I'm wondering, I thought the whole idea of this was to try to improve the accessibility of that site and lessen the effects on residents. So no matter what you do, you're going to affect some resident, and I guess maybe the question is, the lesser of two evils. Who does it affect in the least amount? So I don't know if anybody could answer that question or not. If they went a different route, would it affect more people? Or if they went this proposed route, would it be better and affect a lesser amount of people. I don't know if Lee could answer that or not.
Through the mayor to council, I don't think that it's a quantifiable number. If some people don't mind traffic on the front, and they would say that although you may be driving by more houses, that wouldn't bother them. Some people don't. My understanding is that some of the objection from this is that sort of their backyards have been sort of their private space, and now this is going to have traffic where people wouldn't typically have access to that sort of stuff. I don't think that you can quantify which way is going to affect more people. People are going to be affected regardless of which way it goes forward.
Anyone else on this? Mr. Clerk, if we receive this as information, we're not granting permission, is the way I understand it, correct? Anything else on this? All those in favor of receiving as information? Carried, thank you. Yes.
I was wondering if, before council makes a decision on this, if we should actually hear from some of these objectors. What's their grounds, and how many are there? Should they be coming before us to voice their concerns? As it is, we more or less approved it, but we haven't heard from any objectors. We just know that there are people who are objecting.
Well, we just approved to receive it as information. And, I'm sorry, Councillor Wells?
Mr. Mayor, if anybody wishes to come, make a deputation and explain to us why they favor it or don't favor it, then let them come, and we'll listen. As of
Yeah.
now, it's just received this information.
Well, I think, in all due respect, I think that Nautical Lands wanted to get going last month. They were going to upgrade the road on county property. They felt it was a lot easier on the streets, and people, you know, how sometimes construction brings mud onto the streets, trucks, and they felt this was a way to kind of go in the back door to their development and not use the subdivision in the main streets. Again, that's the information I was given, but I did read some emails from about 2 residents, I believe, and 2 doctors from the medical center opposed to this traffic coming in and out of the back. I say they're going to get it in the back or they're going to get it in the front. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So I'm just saying the information tells me we're not giving them permission. That's the way I read it. Okay, I'm on page 137. Edson Stewart. This is Councillor Brunton has moved and Councillor Hyde has seconded that the request of Edson Stewart for an LCBO request for designation as event of municipal significance for the annual anniversary party be approved subject to receipt of all required approvals. Discussion. Those in favor? Carried. Permission granted. That may be a good time to stop since we have about 21 minutes to 5. That ends our communications. If that's okay with the committee, I'll call a 20-minute break and we'll meet back here at 5 o'clock. We have some presentations and 2 planning applications, so let's recess for 20 minutes. Thank you.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dog